I actually saw the problems with immigration from a very early age. I mean, I was against immigration when I was 7, 8, and 9 years old. So that was my first.
Fired. That was the first cancellation. Fired
for being a Sweden Democrat.
Fired for being part of a political party that got 3%.
I'm 25 years old. I've been studying my whole life. I just finished 5 years at university and a master's degree in business, and I can't use it.
Do you mind if I ask what was the consensus in Sweden or within political parties about COVID and the vaccines?
Complete consensus.
But we're talking about the most amount of bombs. I mean, like when I read the figures, they're letting off grenades.
Homemade bombs.
Homemade IEDs.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a different perspective. If you ask me,
yes,
I think Sweden is in very dire straits. I mean, we are battling time here. The clock is ticking.
Information covered up, censorship, corruption. The mainstream media have proven itself to be untrustworthy. I'm here to give a platform for debate, for truth, for open discussion. I'm introducing you to my podcast, Silenced with Tommy Robinson.
Who exactly is Tommy Robinson, or Stephen Yaxley-Lennon?
With the English Defence League, the EDL.
The problem is with Islamic
The English far-right Islamophobic activists.
Since then, there's been organised protests across the country in London, Manchester, Leeds. People in their thousands are marching for Robinson's cause.
There is no such thing in this country as a Muslim.
Free Tommy Robinson!
Kent is a Swedish politician and economist who represented the Swedish Democrats in the Riksdag from 2010 to 2018. Kent joined the Swedish Democrats in 2006 and has held the position of the party's Secretary for International Affairs. He participated in an international counter-jihad conference and was involved in the counter-jihad movement along with his twin brother, Ted. He has been involved with operating the news website Samhällsnytt and its predecessors since the beginning of his parliamentary term. Kent is also known for his involvement as a writer and editor of certain documentaries, Killing Europe and 2019's The Brink. It's my pleasure to welcome him as a guest to my podcast. Welcome to my latest edition of Silence, my podcast, where I am in Sweden. I'm in Sweden meeting a gentleman who I know has been heavily involved in what can be described as a counter-jihad movement, probably before I was, if I'm right. So, Ken, thank you for sitting down with me.
Nice seeing you again.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you. And I'd just like to start, well, I want to hear all about Sweden anyway. I'm sure people want to hear about the problems in Sweden. But I'll start just with your life, if that's all right, with where you were born, when you grew up.
Yeah, I was born in the south of Sweden, in a city called Malmö, just across the water from Copenhagen.
Yep.
I lived there for a few years, and then I've been staying in 2 other cities in the south of Sweden. And then I moved to Stockholm in 2010, more or less, when I got into the Swedish Parliament. And now I'm living in Dalarna, which is like a 3 hours ride from Stockholm. Yeah. And I'm here, I go back and forth. So yeah, I started out in the south, but I've been up here for the last.
And did you go to school in Malmö?
I went to school in a city called Lund. Yeah. It's a university town.
Okay. And
also a city called Halmstad. It's a smaller town on the west coast, where I went to, up until I was 15. No, yeah, when I moved here, I actually went to the university in Lund also.
Okay, so how did you do at school, and what was school like? What were the demographics like of your city growing up?
I actually saw the problems with immigration from a very early age. I mean, I was against immigration when I was 7, 8, and 9 years old.
Wow.
I was very committed.
I was against immigration when I was 7, 8 years old.
I saw that from an early start, like when I was that young. When I was 10 years old, 1994, I was 13 years old, I campaigned against the European Union, Sweden's accession into the European Union.
When you was 13?
Yeah, I tried to get my grandma to vote no.
So you've been politically active for a very
long time.
Why? Why would you say that is? Because most kids ain't. Most kids are not interested at all.
Yeah, it started out with immigration. I mean, I saw the problems with immigration. I grew up partly in Malmö also, even at that time, in the 80s. A lot of immigrants from Iraq and Iran had started coming in. And then I went to school, and there was a different mentality. There were fights with these people from a very early age, and it just kept going.
Fights as in, can you explain that so people understand at school? Because there's fights at all schools, between all kids.
Yeah, sure. Just one example, I was 11 years old, and I moved to Halmstad again, and I started the 5th grade, and I went there, and I was kind of shy at that time, so I was reading Lord of the Rings at the time. So I went to my first class. We had our first break, and I went out and I sat on a bench and I read the book. And for no apparent reason, this guy from Africa, Issa Kham, his name was.
What's his name?
Issa Kham.
Issa Kham.
Yeah. He started, just picking a fight. So we had a fight, the first thing, and then it just kept going for a few years with different kind of immigrants from the Middle East and Africa. And there was like, I don't know, I wouldn't say every day, but on a very regular basis. And that kept going until...
Was that just against you? Was it targeted? Were the other migrants fighting against other migrants, or was this an incident of Middle Eastern migrants picking on Swedish children?
Well, actually, in that class, there weren't too many Swedish people.
Okay.
I remember it was me and maybe one other, and then there were different kinds.
And that's in the 80s? That's in the 80s?
This was in the early 90s.
Oh, no, it's just 2 Swedish kids?
Yeah, in the class. And there was people from former Yugoslavia. We had a lot of those people coming, but also from Middle East and Africa. So there was a lot of fights with these guys, but also with some European immigrants. And there was the better part, the immigrants that wanted to study and were sort of doing better, and then there was the rest. So, and the reason why I always got into these things, because I was very bad at taking shit from people. And then eventually I tried helping the other students, the more calmer ones that also had some problems, not to the extent I had. And there was also problems with immigrants from other places from the schools, and I usually parked my bike, not at the school, but a few blocks away from the school, so they couldn't take my bike hostage, for instance.
Still your boy, yeah.
Yeah, and we had our classes on the bottom floor, ground floor, and sometimes I packed all my stuff in the bag and had it in the classroom, because at the last, sometimes I heard they're gonna try to take me after class. So instead of going out,
Go through the window.
I went through the window and stuff like that.
And how is that as a kid? How is that? How are you feeling? As you said, you become very anti-immigration. How are you feeling as a child facing that daily then? And did you talk to your mum and dad about it? What did the school do about it?
The school didn't do anything. I mean, I always, the school didn't do not much. I mean, they, there was this Greek history teacher, or teaching religion, and I told him, like, can you let me go just a few minutes ahead of the others? And then he went like, okay, you now you can exit the room, and then, so he went row by row, and then went out. So I got some help in that sense, but in a general level, even when I got older, the what do you call it, the principals or whatever, they didn't do much, and they had also this Swedish mentality. Okay, so you two are fighting. Okay, it's no one's fault. It's equally, you're equally faulty. And it's like, we're not equally faulty. They started it. That's not equal. But they always had this very Swedish mentality that it's no one's fault. Let's not, So there wasn't much help there. I don't know if I told my parents most of it. I don't think I did.
No, you kept it, sure.
Yeah. So, but I wasn't that very sensitive as a guy or as a student. It was more tense, when you're walking into school. Sometimes, especially if there has been a fight or rowdy or something, you approach the school, you park your bike a few blocks away, and you go into school, and it feels like I'm going into a war zone. You sort of brace yourself for entering the school area, because sometime during the day something's going to happen. And it was a lot of times it was like that, but it made me actually. My mother wanted to send me and my brother to a private school. This nice private.
And your brother, you've got just one brother,
twin brother and an older brother.
Twin brother and an older brother. Identical twin.
Yes.
So you're going to school together. Were you paired then? Did you defend each other?
We were paired initially.
Messed with one, you messed with the other one.
Yeah, we were paired initially, but when I was a bit younger, like 7, 8, we were quite rowdy, me and my brother.
Against each other? Yeah,
against each other, and sometimes against others. But so they had to separate us. So we went to different schools when we got a little bit older.
Oh, okay.
But my mother wanted to send us to this nice private school. But I'm happy it didn't work out, because I wouldn't have seen, you know, what the reality is. I would have been shielded somewhere and thinking everything was rosy. But instead I got the real experience of what's happening in Sweden from an early age. And I think that's very important for me to have had. Otherwise, I don't think I would have been, you know, as confident in my political beliefs as I am, which I'm happy that I am. So, and this continued through until I was 15 years old, about. And then we got into another segment of the school called gymnasium in Sweden. It's the 3 years before you go to university.
Okay.
So then things calmed down because, you know, the bad students, they went somewhere else or didn't study.
So really, it's only the people from 15 to 18 are the ones that want to study and continue.
15 to 18, especially in the school I went to,
Okay.
nature science alignment, and so on. So
Was you academic? Was you academic?
Yeah, I studied business, master's degree in business.
Okay.
At Lund. So that's how it sort of started with all the fights with the immigrants, off and on schools. You could see it also in when, you know, it didn't just stay in the school. Sometimes it was in the city, so to speak, too. So that's sort of how it started and cemented my realization, not even belief, my realization about the problems with immigration. And sort of that also, you know, when I started reading newspapers and I started reading how things in other countries, in other cities, for other people, and it just validated exactly what I've been experiencing. So, yeah.
When you say immigration, for your experience in that, growing up in that school, was it all immigration? Was it a certain section of immigration?
Yeah,
that's problematic. Was it a problematic set? Was it from certain countries, certain belief systems?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a huge difference. I mean, there are cultural differences from any immigrant, maybe except for Scandinavian immigrants, but the biggest problem was Middle East and Africa, because they are so apart from us culturally, mentally, and the way they perceive life. So that was also always a huge difference, for sure.
So you got political very early. You're standing against the EU. For what reason?
Well, at that time I think I had a lot of reasons. One was Swedish independence. I didn't like giving it up. They said we didn't. I knew we were gonna. So that was one part. I think that's what I tried to convince my grandma to vote no. To keep our independence, to keep our laws, you know, Swedish people decide our own future. So
did you succeed in convincing her? Did you succeed?
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't. No.
She voted yes, unfortunately. But you know, the propaganda and the money for the yes side, just as anywhere, was enormous. And still the only one with a small margin. So yeah, that kept going. That was in 1994. I got active in, you know, sending debate articles to newspapers regarding Israel-related issues. I'm a pro-Israel.
You're pro-Israel?
Yeah.
For what reason?
Well, for all the reasons. If you look at the historical perspective, if you look at the judicial perspective, if you look at the moral perspective, I'm very pro-Israel in that sense. And also, I mean, I never understood people in my party or on our side who understands the problem with Islam, who understands the problem with Arab culture, who sees, you know, what they're doing in our streets, in our schools, with the violence, with the intimidation, with the threats, with all that. So they understand their culture, but not when it comes to Israel. And for me, this is like...
Do you think it's that the people like that, because there's a lot of this going on at the moment, yeah?
Yeah.
There's been a whole shift of people who would call themselves conservatives, who are awake and open against open border immigration. They're awake and open against Islam and Islamisation. But yet here they are at this moment siding with Palestine.
Yeah.
There's a lot, yeah? Do you think that's to do with them not realising, or do you think it's to do with something more deep-rooted to do with Israel and Jews?
It has to be more deep-rooted. It has to be, because the only reason why they use two different, double standards, right? Yep. The only reason why you can do it so blatantly and so, you know, without even contemplating that they're using these double standards, it has to be something deeply rooted that has to do with them being Jewish. I cannot think of another reason why sane, intelligent people can just throw out their intelligence, throw out every logic there is out the window as soon as it comes to the Jewish state. It's my only conclusion, because these people, I met people, they're not unintelligent, but still they end up, some of them, not all, end up in this weird position.
So one of asked when you become interested in the Jewish state and why? Was it to do with what's going on in Europe? Was it to do with...
I'm not sure. Well, this has actually nothing to do with, even though people might think it has something to do with, but I'm partly Jewish. My mother's Jewish, right?
Okay.
But we never had a Jewish upbringing. I didn't even know I had a Jewish ancestry until I was, I don't know, 11, 12 years old maybe. Because my grandma always...
I guess you're lucky at school that they didn't know at all.
Yeah. but I think they found out somehow. I think I mentioned it's around that age, 11, 12, something like that. Yeah, I think it was because when they accused me of being racist, because I stood up to these guys.
You got accusations of racism for?
Yeah, for like standing up to them, whatever. I'm sure I said stuff too when I was angry at them, and then I mentioned in my defense, I'm Jewish, and then they found out sort of, and obviously they used that against me later on. Anyway, my grandma always said, don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone you're Jewish. Nothing good's come out of it. My grandma told me. But that's not the reason why I got pro-Israel, because I wasn't that involved with Jewish stuff, so to speak. But I'm quite convinced it had to do with me realizing Arab Muslim culture. What they're doing here has to be the same thing that they're doing there. And once I learned how they acted against Israel, or how they act in international affairs in general, it's the same pattern. What you see in the schoolyard with the Arab gang you're fighting with, is exactly the same mentality, exactly the same way of acting.
The hostility, the aggression that we see.
Yeah, and also like this, like they pick a fight with you. Like one day in school, I was walking, and this Arab guy, he's like started eyeballing me, right? And I eyeballed him back. I didn't escalate, I just did the same. And then he escalated, and then it was a big fight, big fight. And then like they accused me of, why are you picking a fight? They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? You picked the fight. So they turn tables, and then they get upset, pretending I picked the fight. And it's exactly the same thing that happens on the international forum. No, they go on 7th October massacre, 1,200 people, and then they accuse Israel of it. Oh, why are you attacking us?
And then they demand a ceasefire.
They demand a ceasefire. I mean, yeah, let's we attacked you in 1947, 1967, or whatever, and it's always Israel's fault. And then the international community just plays along with it. So I mean, I think the behavior on the individual level in the schoolyard, I recognized it when I see how they behave on the international level, which is quite astounding, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it's the same as me. I've experienced it growing up in Luton, so I know the difference and the hostility that come from the Islamic community. And if they're behaving in this way here, and in Germany, and in Sweden, in every country in Europe, they're the aggressors, their violence, the rapes, the drugs, the gangs, then I'm pretty sure when we look at half of them support, 48% of them voted for Hamas, then I reckon that 48% of people are problematic there as well.
Yeah, and I always go, but people always like, oh, they're not all like that, it's just a few extremists. And I usually have this example. In Egypt, just one Egypt or Afghanistan, in Egypt, 90% of the Muslim women are mutilated, genital mutilation, 90%.
90% of the women in
Egypt. And this is, I think I read UN statistics. I
mean, in Britain we've had 55,000 children genitally mutilated.
I think it was like 88, 90%. And imagine that, if 88 and 90% of the women are genitally mutilated, what does that tell you about the men in that country? What does that tell you about the husbands, the fathers, the brothers?
Every one of them.
Yeah, that means that 90% of them are, they're vile. They don't even belong. I mean, they are so apart from us, it's not even funny. So when people say, oh, it's just a few, no, it's not just a few, it's 90%. Or Afghanistan, or whatever country you choose.
Well, even if you look at the figures of the people that want Sharia law, Afghanistan upwards of 90%.
Yeah. So don't come and tell me it's like just a few bad apples. It's bullshit. It's actually the other way around. There are always a few good apples, but not the other way around.
That doesn't change what the problem is.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's a knife. I always say, oh, your kebab, the bloke who works in your kebab shop's really nice. Well, that means Islam's great, does it?
Yeah. But this is
Your
how,
taxi driver was a nice bloke. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Give Islam a free pass then.
Yeah, this is exactly why ordinary people think, oh no, immigration is good. Oh, my kebab, yeah, no, he was nice selling kebab to me.
I've got a
Okay.
nice mate. I've got a nice
Yeah.
mate. Okay, tell that to the girls in Rotherham and Telford.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I got involved with Israel issue, and I went, some debates on Israel. Was one in the synagogue in Malmö in 2006. So they started debating Israel, and I, as usual, was quite vocal about it, and I argued and stuff. And there was a guy from the Liberal Party who said, yeah, well, he tried to recruit me to the Liberal Party.
To the Liberal Party,
yeah,
okay.
It was in May 2006. And I knew I would never join the Liberal Party, but I thought, okay, they invited me to their whatever, I'll go listen. So I went there and listened, and I told them, okay, we agree on some things, like taxes or whatever, but my big thing is immigration, and we don't agree that at all, I told them. And they said, yeah, but we can have different sort of opinions in our party. So I left the meeting. It was a sunny May day in 2006, and then I just realized, okay, I've been political all my life. Of course, I should join the Sweden Democrats.
So who, at this point, 2006, how old are you?
25.
You're 25, okay. And what were the Swedish Democrats at that time? When were they formed?
They were formed in 1988.
Oh, so they're older than I believe.
But
wow.
In 2006, this was ahead of the election in 2006. In 2006, we got 1.4%. So we were like below 1% when I joined.
Okay.
Wait, what was it? 2006? No, yeah, they were 1.4%. When I joined, we had 1.4%.
Yes.
And in the election that year, we got 3%. And as we mentioned before, now we're at 20.5%.
So you've gone from 3% in 2006 to now 20.5%.
Yes.
Can I ask you, when you joined, what was the Swedish Democrats? Was it an anti-immigration party? Was it a party that spoke about Islam? Was it a party, because I've read online that some people give you the credit for shifting the Swedish Democrat to be a counter-jihad political party or a voice for counter-jihad movements?
Well, when I joined in 2006, that was my big thing.
Yeah.
The counter-jihad movement, the Islam question. Sweden Democrats started out as an anti-immigration party.
Okay.
But, and I'm sure they didn't like Islam, but it wasn't that pronounced, And what I did for the first 4 years at least, I focused a lot on the immigration issue. I had held seminars about it. I invited Robert Spencer to our seminars.
What year was that?
He was here.
What year was that?
This was in 2010 or maybe 9 or 11, something like that.
I come here in 2010 or 11 with Pamela Geller
Okay.
as well.
Yeah.
Was Robert Spencer there? But yeah, sorry, Karen.
Yeah. So I did that, and I held a speech in 2009 that got nationwide attention because it was unheard of. For a political party that's growing, and we started getting attention in Swedish media. It was unheard of to talk about Islam the way I did in 2009.
Where did you give that speech?
It was on our annual congress in the Sweden Democrats in autumn of 2009.
So you stood up and give a speech, an honest, I'm guessing, frank discussion on
Yeah,
Islam?
about the history of Islam and their conquests and Muhammad and all that. And the state's TV, they live sent this thing or something. And they had a warning message and a warning voice saying, this is against our policies, blah, 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 blah. We don't stand by this, but this is what he said, and then the speech.
A disclaimer.
Yes, a disclaimer.
A disclaimer before someone tells the truth about Islam.
Yeah. So that was my focus a lot until we got into Parliament in 2010. Then I started focusing more on criminal law. That's where I ended up. That's my committee in the Parliament was criminal law. So I was responsible for the party's development of proposals regarding crime and punishment. So I started focusing more on that.
Do you mind if I ask? Because I know the years you're talking about, no one was talking about Islam, and it was very difficult to talk about Islam. So you've probably shifted the open window in Sweden to have these discussions. How was that personally for you? Was there a backlash from within your own party? Was you deemed as an extremist, as a racist? Did the media attack you? Was you fearful? Was there threats? Like, can you tell me a bit about what went on at that time in your life? Because you're only young, you're 25 at that time.
Yeah.
That's the age I was when I started the English Defence League.
I joined May 2006, and then I got an internship at the Swedish Embassy in Israel, in Tel Aviv, in the autumn of 2006. So I went there, and I was supposed to stay there for 5 months or something. And then one day, someone comes in, like, did Carl Bildt, that was our foreign minister at the time, did he say something? Our foreign minister, did he make an announcement or something? And said, no, he didn't. But then I sort of understand what was going on, because the day before, Expressen, this major Swedish newspaper, had called me in Tel Aviv and asked me, are you a Sweden Democrat? Are you at the Swedish Embassy? Yes, yes, blah, blah, blah. And then the news broke. They have a Sweden Democrat at the embassy in Tel Aviv. That was also unheard of. This was in 2006. This was just a month after the election in 2006 when we got 3%.
Okay.
And that was also unheard of, because they always regarded, Sweden Democrats, they're Nazis, or if they're not Nazis, they're stupid, farmers or whatever, right? To have a Sweden Democrat at an embassy, unheard of and unacceptable.
Especially in Tel Aviv.
Especially in Tel Aviv. So that was the story broke. I was fired the same day. So that was my first...
Fired, that was the first cancellation. Fired for?
For being a Sweden Democrat.
Fired for being part of a political party that got 3% of the vote.
And the ambassador openly said so. He wasn't very smart. He still has a job in the foreign embassy and foreign office now. But he wasn't very smart. So when he was interviewed in media, he said, we can't have people like that here, he said. So I was fired, and that was my first quote-unquote scandal. So I was in all the media in the entire country for being fired. And I had a job in London, actually, in the finance industry. I was about to start that job after the internship.
Okay.
But I lost that job because they had a client that was Swedish, and he read about me. He saw it on their webpage, because they already put me up on their webpage, this financial company.
The company put your name and picture up on their webpage, and he
saw it.
He saw it.
He talked to them and he said, sorry, we think you've been a perfect fit, but we can't do it. And then I was fired from that, and I was fired from a bunch of other jobs. But all that, the firing on the embassy, that I lost a job in London, I lost a job in Denmark, because I had a middle management Swedish guy who lived in Malmö. So all those firings led me to go all the way into politics. It led me into national parliament, which is kind of ironic. They fired me and everything, and it all led exactly where I wanted to be in the end.
It led you to be more committed.
Yeah, more committed, and yeah.
And nowhere else to go anyway, I guess.
Yeah, I couldn't apply for a job in Sweden no more.
Was that difficult? Because you're clearly intelligent, you're educated. Was it difficult? Did you have career paths? Did you have visions that were then taken because of it?
Yeah, I remember when I was fired from the embassy in Tel Aviv. I remember I went to the beach in Tel Aviv, and I lay there and I thought, what the fuck have I done? Like, I'm 25 years old, I've been studying my whole life, I just finished 5 years at university and a master's degree in business, and I can't use it. That's what I thought, on that beach. Because
you've opened your mouth about
Islam. Yeah, exactly. So I thought, okay, that's why I started applying for jobs in Denmark.
And then you realised, I'm known around Europe now.
Yeah, well, as soon as a Swedish guy pops up, or they Google me or something, So, that was a bit concerning. But I remember, I was thinking there, fuck, I'm not gonna back down or apologize. So I went the other way instead and committed. And that led me to the rest.
What about around your family? Did you have problems within the family?
No.
Was your brother political like you?
Ted, my brother, he was, yeah.
Swedish Democrats as well?
Yeah, and I told him, when I was leaving for Israel, I told him, you should join also in that summer. So he joined a few months later, because I told him, join it, because I wanted, I told him to join, and he did. So he was, the rest weren't politically committed, but they never had any problems with it.
Were they worried for you? Did you have pressure? I asked these questions because when I went to my activism, I had my mum crying.
Yeah.
Because it's affecting everyone's lives.
Yeah.
It doesn't just affect your life.
Yeah, I'm sure my mom worried, and she still does. She always tells me to be careful, wear a cap on and stuff like that.
Because she's scared for your safety.
Yeah, but my mom is tough. She's really tough, and so she always supported it, and knew I was right and everything. So she don't have any problem in that sense. But as a mother, she's worried something might happen.
Okay. And then so you've lost all your job. You've lost everything. One thing I'm intrigued to know, when you have 3% then, you're now at 20%, yeah? The backlash that you faced, or did you face alienation, do you feel vindicated now? Has the mood around you changed? Because I seem to remember at the time, the only faces I can remember from Swedish politics when I started talking about Islam was yourself, yeah? And I remember your brother, I met your brother. And I feel like you come under immense attack.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah? Immense attack, yeah. Like in each country, whereas if you're watching this in England, I come under immense attack and I was defamed and I was attacked. These lads face the same in Sweden, a very liberal country, where no one wanted to accept the reality. So at that time, with all those attacks, and you've carried on with your work, and Swedish Democrats, as you said, this should give hope to people sitting and listening. In 2006, 3%, and now at 20%, and playing a role in influencing government. Yeah,
no, I for sure feel vindicated. I remember when I joined the party in 2006, since I have Polish Jewish ancestry from my mother's side, a lot of people told me, like, how can you do that? We're Jewish and blah, blah, blah. And I told them, if you don't realize now, you will later. And there's also different parts of Jews in Sweden. There's Swedish Jews who've been here for generations, and there are Eastern European Jews who came in the 60s, and they understand it more.
Because they've been there, they've lived there.
They're tougher. And eventually, most of them, or maybe not most, but a lot of them, switched sides and voted for my party and realized I've been right. So I feel vindicated in that sense. I feel vindicated in a lot of other sense, because everything we said, not only me specifically, what I've said have come true. My proposals, my law proposals that I put down for 14 years ago.
Which law proposals? Tell me what law proposals you put down 14 years ago.
Oh, there's so many. There's literally hundreds of them that they all voted no. They said it was bad.
These were law proposals in order to you were in the Swedish Democrats and you put forward law proposals to deal with problems from immigration
and the criminal justice system.
Okay.
So, for instance, harder punishments, more rights to police. I mean, I wanted the border controls towards Denmark. That was also wrong. I told them, we can't have asylum seekers coming to Sweden and just letting them roam free in the country. We don't even know who they are. They don't have IDs with them. We don't know who they are, and we don't know if they're allowed to stay. So why should we let them roam free in the country, and when they get a no, they disappear? Yeah. So I thought we should have asylum centers. And then, the media went in a frenzy, call it, concentration camps, stuff like that. And then now, official government policy.
Now, and that official government policy, because let me just...
But they haven't done it yet, but they're talking about it.
But now they're talking about doing it. They're talking about doing it in the sense that this has come from pressure from the Swedish Democrats.
Yeah, for sure. And also,
because when you get 20% of the vote.
Facing up to reality, also, with the terrorist attacks, with people who got a no on their application and then stayed and then ran a truck over people and stuff like that. Right?
Where did that happen?
Just in the center of Stockholm, Drottninggatan here.
What happened? When was that?
There was actually 2 attempts. One in 2010, he tried to blow himself up. He failed.
He's from Luton.
He got radicalised. Yeah, we talked about that. That guy, yeah.
He got radicalised in Luton. He come as a normal innocent Muslim to the UK. He got radicalised in Luton University by Al-Mushaddin, because we were targeting the group that were radicalised at the time.
I remember you told me when we were there. But there was this other guy.
And his missus was stunning, his missus was absolutely well. His missus in the UK, but she ended up all burqa'd up.
Okay. So there was this other guy. He ran a truck on the walking street between from Parliament and into the city.
Okay.
And he killed 5-6 people, 1 young girl, and injured a bunch of others. He was Uzbekistan.
And he was a refugee?
Yeah, illegally. He stayed here illegally. And we should have extradited him, but we didn't, because we were Sweden. So we didn't. So he killed a lot of people. So there's been tons of proposals. I mean, I wouldn't bore you with them all, but
Yeah.
but
You're sitting here now, and all the things you spoke about.
Yeah.
How do you feel if they'd have put those things in 50? What would the country look like in difference to how it looks like now?
yeah, if we didn't done it 15 years ago, we wouldn't have had the immigration. I mean, I put proposals on immigration too. Making it easier to throw people out of the country, making it easier to recall citizenship. I wanted to do that, and all kinds of stuff. So Sweden would have been safer, richer, and better if they listened. But they not only did they vote no out of reflex, they actually argued against it. They were so convinced they were right, and now, we always said this.
So they're saying now.
Sort of, yeah. So it's a vindication for sure. But in the end, it's about saving the country. So,
talk to me about no-go zones in Sweden.
yeah,
I've read. Is there a police report that named 60 places that police can't go? Is that right?
yeah. They call it särskilt utsatta områden, means like especially, I don't know how to translate it, but
Sensitive areas.
Sensitive areas, something like that. Yeah,
If I remember.
yeah. So they made this list a while ago. It got a lot of media attention, and it's basically, I don't know what ghettos people are referring to, because I'm sure there are ghettos even worse in England or in the US or whatever, but it's getting worse and worse, and they even put up street controls in some areas.
The police have.
No, not the police, the gangs.
The gangs have.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
to go, they would be doing roadblocks.
Yeah, they had roadblocks and checked people.
When we say gangs,
not in general, but sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And when we say gangs, we're talking about Muslim gangs in Muslim-dominated areas.
Yeah, but we also have a big organized mafia for Christian Arabs, the Assyrians or whatever you call it. Yeah, Christian Arabs control a lot of the drug trade. I heard.
The drug trade, because I keep seeing about explosions, bombs going off in Sweden regularly.
We're worse than any country in Europe, I think.
When we say bombs, what's that mean? Because
I think it's all the time.
What do you mean?
They blow up. They blew up. The houses that are wall to wall.
Terrace houses.
Yeah, they blew up one of them. Like in the west side of Stockholm, not long ago.
Actually blew it up, planted a bomb.
Yeah, and they
because I've seen this on the news. You may have seen it on the news, read about it on the news. Donald Trump made a comment about Sweden as well.
He was right.
What was his
last
comment?
night in Sweden? He said.
What did he say?
He said last night in Sweden, and it was about I don't know, can't remember what it was. Maybe it was an immigrant riot or bombings, but he was right.
Yeah, he made comments and he come under immense attack from everyone in the world saying he's lying about Sweden.
Yeah, he wasn't.
He wasn't lying.
No, he wasn't lying. There have been huge riots when Paludan had his Quran burning tour in Sweden. Huge riots. But all, bombings, and they killed someone's mother in Sweden. A gang member's mother. Now there's a court going on right now about it. So
they're letting off grenades,
homemade bombs,
homemade IEDs.
Yeah,
but we're talking about the most amount of bombs. I mean, like when I read the figures.
Yeah, and this is a combination of Sweden accepting, these.
Are there Swedish lads doing this every week?
No.
No.
And everyone knows this. I mean, everyone knows this now, and they even admit it now. Most of them, they didn't before. Even the moderates, so center-right party.
Yep.
It wasn't long ago they didn't admit the ethnic dimension of the crime.
But now they do.
It is because of the Sweden Democrats.
Do you mind if I ask? Does that frustrate you? What does it frustrate? I'll give you an example. So I've been hammered, slandered, attacked, demonised by everyone. Yeah, and now I sit and watch the same people who've done that to me.
Yeah.
Parroting what I say. Now that it's acceptable to,
Yeah.
Is this a similar situation going on in Sweden? Are you now looking at other parties coming out and talking about it bravely?
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're brave?
You should see it. Social Democrats is the biggest party in Sweden.
Yes.
Has been in the government basically for 100 years. They've been vehemently, pro-immigration.
Were they the feminist party?
Feminist party.
This is all the Swedish feminists who bowed their head and covered their hair in
Iran.
In Iran,
Yeah.
To the Ayatollah.
Yeah.
To the Ayatollah who makes women cover their hair.
Exactly.
So real feminists,
Yeah.
a real feminist would stand up to that. Yeah, okay, I remember this.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's the government we're talking about. Sweden. Okay.
Yeah, now we have
all women. Well, lots of leadership and women.
But the rest are wimps anyway. But
men
they have for 40 years said immigration is good. We're not building any borders. Open door immigration policy. And just like a few weeks ago, when they started realizing maybe we can win some votes of being a little bit more strict, the party leader, Magdalena Andersson, she goes out and said, we always been very restrictive on immigration, and even the left-wing liberal, opinion writers, even they go like, okay, give it a break.
Yeah. Well, come on.
Yeah, come on. I mean, even them, they're almost on their
Come on,
side.
you've caused this shit.
Yeah, but they say it without shame because Social Democrats have no shame at all. They just stand there and blurt it out and hope it sticks.
Will it stick? Does it stick?
Do
the media? Do you have a separation of state and media here, or do the media actually call
we
you
have
out?
a separation of state and media, but the
Do you actually have one?
I know, not really.
Do they call them out?
The state appoints the board of the state media. So how separate is it?
Okay.
And then all the journalists, since the Social Democrats have been in power for so long, it's entrenched in the system, in the courts, everywhere. So yeah, but yeah, they're doing that. No, we've been saying this all the time, all along. Why did you listen to us? I mean, the government now is introducing laws against organized crimes, sort of inspired by RICO laws in the U.S.
Okay.
This was a proposal I put down 2012. And then the Social Democratic leader who's been against it until 3 weeks ago or something.
He took it as his.
No, she's sitting there in a debate and like, yeah, we've been waiting for this for so long. Why didn't you do anything earlier? And I was like, you've been against it for at least 12 years.
You were calling us all racists.
So it's a joke, and I hope it don't stick. And I think maybe they reached the limit of how many lies they can tell. Yeah.
What's the mood like in Sweden? What if you've grown up here and you've seen it change, you've seen it go from 3% to 20%? Is there hope for Sweden? Do the Swedish people feel there's hope? Do you see hope for the future? What's the demographics of this country with Islam? How much is it growing, even if you close the borders?
Well, I'm sure there's a different perspective. If you ask me,
yes,
I think Sweden is in very dire straits. I mean, we are battling time here. The clock is ticking due to demographics. I wouldn't be too worried if we weren't fighting demographics, but we are. And we're still, even though with the center-right government, letting a lot of immigrants, and we're not getting them out of the country. So demographically, it's a huge problem, and you know this, I know this, we've seen this all across the world, throughout history. The only thing that wins is demographics in the end. And Sweden is a very, very bad situation when it comes to demographics. So from that perspective...
How bad? What is the Swedish Democrat? What are the demographics now? Do you know?
Well, we have, it's definitely above 20% that's not even born inside of Sweden.
One in five aren't born.
1 in 5, but I think it's closer to 22-24% now. And Sweden, they don't do statistics enough on religious affiliation and stuff or stuff like that.
Out of that 20%, a majority Muslim.
Yeah, I would be convinced. Yeah.
And how many children are they having compared to Swedes at the minute? Do you know? More,
but we don't do statistics. I once asked for statistics because
you can't find them
in the Swedish prison system. You have Swedish citizens and the rest. And I wanted to know, okay, in the Swedish citizens group, how many people are Swedish? I want to know their origin nationalities. When I was in Parliament, I asked for this, and then big uproar in the media. Kent, he wants to ethnically, map people, and I go like, we need to know to make proper judgments here.
If certain sections are more likely to criminality.
Yeah, well, we need to know. But the media is very proud of themselves when they report that Somalis are doing very bad in school. Then it's okay to count nationalities, but not when I ask for it. So I think Sweden is a very bad situation, but now is the first time since Swedish democracy was introduced that we do not have a left government or a liberal government. Now we have sort of a center-right liberal conservative government. And this might not sound much, but in Sweden it's a lot. Because we never had this before. Sweden Democrats never had this influence. And finally things are starting to happen when it comes to crime and punishment, when it comes to migration, when it comes to a lot of crazy stuff that the left wing introduced. So in that sense, there's maybe a light at the end of the tunnel, but we need to act very quickly.
When's the next election in Sweden?
2026.
2026. Do you think the Swedish Democrats will rise again? Are they predicted to? Is there any polling?
We're polling higher now than before.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we still have a chance to grow once more. We're the only party I think in Europe who has consistently been growing since we started, and we never went down under election results yet.
That's great. Because I see the Danish People's Party, they went up, but then they went down. But they went down after they let everyone come in on the invasion.
Yeah, they had over 20. Now they're almost out.
Yeah.
So,
because they promised to stop immigration, and then when they got there, they didn't.
Yeah. So that's two perspectives. And then if you ask the left or right, I'm not sure. They have different perspectives. But Sweden is in dire straits, but there's light at the end of the tunnel if we can keep this government in power.
What do you think of Geert Wilders' election?
Oh, I think it was fantastic. I hope he managed to make a change. You know.
Do you think he will? Do you think he'll manage to get in to be the
I'm not 100% updated on the Dutch, political atmosphere, but from what I gather, the rest of them are extremely left-wing liberal, and I understand it's very hard to form a government
with all the different
with him. And you see what happened in Italy. Meloni, she promised to stop immigration, and now she totally caved in to the EU.
Why do you think that is with Meloni? Because Meloni everyone had so much hope. Where's Salvini?
I don't know. I've been asking myself the same question.
Where's Salvini?
When Meloni failed, why didn't he leave the government? Why isn't he? I don't hear it from him at all. I don't know what happened. This to me.
They got him out. They done a coup.
Yeah. They got him out of the ministry, right?
Yeah.
But he's supporting the government.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't heard a word. And Meloni is caved in. And for me, it's like I have no idea what's happened there. Threats, corruption. There's got to be some kind of foul play.
Yeah, because she was so strong and then bang.
Yeah.
Total reverse.
Yeah. So it's very worrisome. And you see what's happening in Germany now with the AfD. They want to outlaw them.
Outlaw them, yeah. So across the whole of Europe, parties like the Swedish Democrats, and if you think about that, 3% to 20%, like it should give us hope as well. But you have a different voting system.
Different voting system. You have majority
first past the
post, which makes it impossible.
Makes it impossible to get an MP.
Yeah.
To get into Parliament.
Yeah, which is
and they're all in the same club, so they'll never change it.
Yeah, it's a crazy system to have. Yes, it gives stability, but what stability is that? You don't need stability. You need to give the power.
Direct democracy.
Yeah, you need to give the people power so they can make a change, and you cannot in England. You cannot in the US.
What would, because people think of Sweden, they think blonde hair, blue eyes. Yeah, that's what everyone would think. Yeah. Is it blonde hair, blue eyes? If I walked into Gothenburg, if I walked into Malmo,
no.
Do you see Swedish people?
You see Swedish people, but it resembles Middle East a lot. There was a famous article in the Sydsvenskan, it's a southern newspaper. They interviewed this Muslim woman, and she said, "Yo, I really like it here in Malmö. It's just like Iraq."
It's just like Iraq.
Yeah. So you will see a lot of foreigners, especially in the city center of Malmö and Gothenburg. Once this was like 10, 15 years ago, I took the train from Lund to Malmö, got off the train station, walked through the center of the city to a friend, and it was basically, I could have been in Iraq. I didn't see a single Swedish person, only Arabs.
You could do that in most major cities of Western Europe now.
Yeah.
You could actually get off, it's like people say, you could come into an airport and walk out and you wouldn't know where you are.
Yeah.
Paris, Berlin.
Yeah, especially airports when you go to Arlanda, yeah.
Where are you?
Yeah. So it's a bad situation, for sure.
What about Malmo? So if that's your birthplace, if that's where you were originally, I've read that Malmo has the second highest rate per capita in the world outside of South Africa. Rapes per head.
I haven't checked the statistics for Malmö specifically. Sweden has a higher rape number.
Sweden does.
Yeah.
And do we know any demographics on who the perpetrators are of the rapes in Sweden?
We know. We know, but there are no official statistics. So they hide as far as I know.
Okay.
But I mean, you talk to police officers, you talk to, and everyone admits, the crime rate is.
See, what someone done in the UK was they took every conviction for rape. Yeah. And because they don't take religious background, but they took the names.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of all the convictions. and then checked which names have Islamic background, which is where the figures come out that 84% of the men, 84 to 90% of the men convicted of these rapes are actually Muslim.
Yeah.
So, because they hide the statistics in that sense, but then that's where Peter McLaughlin done the investigation. Sam went through every trial and every case and then put together the names and realised, well, they are Muslim.
Yeah. But in Sweden, the left wing tries to explain it away, but but no, most rapes are committed in the home by your spouse. It's a man problem. It's a problem with men. It's a masculinity problem, and it's not about religion or culture. It's a masculinity problem. That's what they try to put it to. And I go, if a Swedish guy rapes his wife, that's very bad, and he should go to prison for it. But that doesn't mean we need to make things worse by importing these guys.
Importing culture.
Yeah.
I've read some cases in Sweden of Swedish girls being raped by migrants.
Yeah.
And the sentences being absolutely
ridiculous.
I mean, unbelievable. Yeah.
I can tell you horror stories.
Can you tell?
I can do one worse.
Go on.
There was this was a few years ago, 2012 maybe, but it's still valid. The laws in Sweden haven't changed that much.
You're going to be shocked by this because I've gone through these cases.
Yeah. Her name was Beatrice. She was 16 years old. She was, for some reason, dating this Iraqi Kurd guy. And he got it in his mind that she got pregnant. So he said, let's meet outside of Västerås. It's a city, not far from here. Yeah, let's meet there. So I met in the woods outside of Västerås, where he stumped her to death. The prosecutor said she drowned in her own blood because he jumped on her throat, so she couldn't breathe because of the blood. So she died in that forest. Guess how much he got? Well, guess what sentence he got?
What did he get?
3 years.
So is that
He was out. He was young,
yeah.
so he got all this whatever for being young. But he got out, totally free, before he was 20 years old.
I've read cases of rapes where they don't go to jail, they're getting fines. I've read cases of Swedish girls being raped by groups of migrant men.
Yeah, there are tons of these.
So what value is that put in? Least of all, especially from a so-called feminist government at the time in 2012, the value that's put on these Swedish girls' lives is nothing.
It's nothing, and
are these Swedish girls, in their mind, are they a willing sacrifice to pay for their utopia of multiculturalism?
Well, I'll give you another crazy story.
Please.
This I think it was in Gothenburg or close to. This girl, she was raped, mutilated and killed by an African immigrant. She was pro-immigration. She even started, it's called 5 to 12 movement. She started.
What's that?
It's a pro-immigration movement for immigration.
So a girl who started the pro-immigration movement
got killed by an immigrant, brutally killed.
Raped, murdered, yeah.
Raped, murdered.
Okay.
And I think mutilated. I think he chopped her up and stuff.
Okay.
You know what her father did?
He raised money at the funeral for refugees.
He became chairman of that movement,
yeah.
of that pro-immigration movement. After they killed his daughter.
Oh no, he didn't raise money. That was a German one. There was another German case the same, and the father raised money at the funeral for migrants.
Yeah.
After one of the illegal migrants had raped and killed his daughter.
So this is how far the brainwashing has gone.
So the father took over and continued what she'd done in welcoming the migrants, and one of the migrants had murdered her, raped her, butchered her.
So this is how far the brainwashing has gone in Sweden, and we can find hundreds of these cases.
What are you doing? So Kent, you've continually been involved in politics.
Yeah.
Where are you at now? What are you doing
now?
Now
I'm in regional politics.
What does that mean?
That means like we have municipality, that basically not on city level but almost. We have regional politics in Sweden are the ones who take care of healthcare and public transport, more or less.
Okay.
In the region of Dalarna, so we have 21 regions in Sweden,
yep.
and I'm in one of them now. So that's what I do. It's not as high profile as in national politics, but that's where I am now.
For the Swedish Democrats?
For the Swedish Democrats,
okay.
Yes. And I'm also running my newspaper, a Swedish one, called, if you translate it, Society News.
Society News.
It's an online, you call alt media news site.
Yeah.
So
alt media, and you're within a political party that's within government. Do you face
almost within government?
But do you face censorship? Do you face censorship personally? Have you faced censorship with your newspaper?
Yes, well, they tried to hurt our economy. You know, the government. We had Google Ads on our site a few years ago, and then the Swedish social democratic government had a meeting with Google about alt media and all that. I think it was a few days later, it took us off.
So government interference with private
definitely interference
with private business.
Yeah,
which is fascism.
Yeah, and they've been trying. Now they're trying to. You know, we also face legal cases for reporting on other legal cases, and the courts. We try to explain them. We didn't make the judgment on this person, like defamation, right?
Yes.
We didn't defame him. We didn't call him an animal abuser. We didn't do that. We just reported on a highly public case between him and another guy. And for our readers to understand what it's about, we need to explain what it's about. Yeah. So we didn't make that judgment, but they're suing us for it, and the Swedish law is so fucked up. So in one instance we got convicted, and now we got convicted again for another. We're going to appeal, but I mean,
convicted by a jury.
Yeah, by jury, and yeah, there is.
You have a jury both for these sorts of things, or is it a judge?
There's a jury in the first instance, and then there's sort of professional lawmen in the other. So we're going to appeal, and we think they should realize what it's about. But we're facing lawfare, definitely, and the other alt media is doing that too. So they're trying to hurt our economy. They're changing the rules so we can't get state subsidies, and you know, they're not trying to make it easy for us. And they love to do what they did with Google. Google controls the whole market for ads. If you're not on Google, you can't make any money on programmatic ads at all. So they're trying to hurt our economy best they can.
And affect your reach, I guess.
Affect our reach. I mean, we are shadow banned on Facebook. I mean, we get no interactions. Yeah. It's hard to find us on Google search results, etc., etc. So you know, it's like what you faced.
Yeah.
You had like millions of followers.
Yeah, gone.
And they're gone. They're doing it all over. I mean, they did it even to Trump. If you can do it to Trump, they can do it to anyone.
What was the consensus in Sweden or within political parties about COVID and the vaccines?
Complete consensus.
Complete consensus as well, even the Swedish Democrats?
Yeah, well, they haven't voiced, you know, they haven't made their voice, they didn't get involved too much with it. Initially they did, and then they sort of simmered down a little bit.
Do you wish they did? Do you wish they did? What do you think? Because I think the populist parties, I think when you've got a populist party that's speaking out against the narrative of the establishment and the consensus,
it's very dangerous.
Then they should challenge that consent. They should challenge it and speak truthfully.
You should challenge it if you think something's wrong. And I'm not vaccinated.
No.
I saw through that shit early.
Go on, Ken.
And this is also a very sensitive issue because now they're trying to use like, oh, you're against science?
It's not science.
You
There's
should
no science in it.
Platform. Are you against science? Kick him out of the party.
It's them that are against science.
Yeah. But
so even within kick him out? Even within the Swedish Democrat?
No, not within. You know, the media uses. Oh, he's against science. Okay. He's a conspiracy theorist. Yeah, and then they don't realize that, you know, the number of pharma scandals in the world where everyone said it was safe.
The number of what? Big pharma.
Big pharma scandals. You had one in you had many, I'm sure, in England. You had this one. I don't know how long ago it was. You distributed these pills to 2 million pregnant women in England. And they got miscarriages and you know, all that shit. And that was approved by the authorities. We had the same thing in Sweden called Neocidin-skandalen, where they handed out this medical stuff to women and it killed their babies. So I think you should have a healthy criticism toward when they're trying to push this thing that they did.
Yes, this is what I mean. So do I. So that's why I'd hope that the populist parties were brave enough to really come at the governments over this, over the forced vaccinations, over the forced lockdowns.
Yeah. No, but in Sweden, we didn't have lockdowns like you did.
Yeah, yours was open. Sweden was open. Sorry, Sweden was open. Yeah.
No. Well, we had some.
Well, they used to say the Swedish population are more. Yeah.
We were more relaxed about it.
Yeah.
We closed restaurants at 8. We had some stupid rules about, you know.
But you didn't have the
masks and the bullshit. You can only sit. We had some stupid stuff. but not to the extent you guys had.
Yeah.
We
Okay,
actually
yeah, so
forced
that's-
people in their homes for 3 weeks. It's like insane.
Which is probably why so because you didn't have the draconian levels that the rest of Europe had, it may be why the Swedish Democrats didn't shift to being fully...
Yeah, and then people realized, I haven't talked to them about it, but people realized, okay, it's not as serious as they made it out to
It's the
be.
flu.
Yeah, it's the flu.
It's the flu.
It's the flu.
They
And
manipulate numbers.
Exactly, and for some people, maybe got more affected, but
some people die from the flu. They get more
some
affected
people
by
die
the
from
flu.
the flu.
People
And
with-
this might
people
be
with-
a worse strain of the flu, but not to the extent that you close down the entire society. People don't get their cancer operations. I mean, in Austria, they were about to fine people, what, 5,000 euros for not taking a shot. In Australia, they put them in camps.
Yeah.
And no one protested. You know, the West always protests when you're breaking humanitarian laws and human rights and all that. No one gave a flying fuck
But people being locked up.
when they're being locked up and when they did these things that only like North Korea would do. No one cared. And this also goes to show what we talked about with Salman Momika. We have laws and principles, but if those laws and principles don't align with the power,
Can you explain just for? There's a gentleman.
Yeah,
How do you pronounce his name? Salman.
Salman Momika. Call him
There's an
Salman.
Iraqi refugee who's come to Sweden who has been burning the Quran. Yeah. On the
Yes,
streets of Sweden.
on the streets of Sweden.
Talk to me about that. What's your thoughts on that? What's the Swedish Democrat Party's thought on that? What's the general consensus of the Swedish population?
Yeah, so he's burning the Quran in protest against Islam and Islam in Sweden. So obviously he gets death threats and the establishment, and he creates riots and unrest for Muslims.
Who riots? The Muslims?
Muslims and Arabs.
How bad do they riot? Has there been one riot, 10 riots, 20 riots? Is there regular riots?
I mix them up with the Paludan riots, but
Okay. So over
several, yeah. So
where they're burning police cars, they're literally burning cities.
yeah,
Yeah, I've seen.
So in Sweden we have problems with extraditing, criminals and rapists and whatever. Because of the system didn't want to extradite them. But as soon as this guy, who the power didn't really like, it went very fast for them to withdraw his residency, his right to stay in Sweden, like this. I mean, it never goes that fast. But when the power wanted to go that fast, then it happens. And then there was a court decision to extradite him. You never seen that fast happen before. But as soon as they don't like him, the powers at B.
So that's an Iraqi refugee, come to Sweden, exercise his freedom of speech in the country that has freedom of speech by burning the Quran. It's not against the law here to burn the Quran. And then they've withdrew his refugee status and they want to kick him back to Iraq. What do you think, knowing what you know, your knowledge of Islam, knowledge of these different Arab countries, what would happen to Salwan if he is put back into Iraq?
No, I would be very surprised if he wasn't killed.
So what is the process of asylum? You get asylum if your life's in danger.
If your life's in danger, but now they don't care because it doesn't fit their narrative.
So again, I don't want to put it back. Again, for me, the hope for me in each European country is the populist party. The hope for me for Sweden is the Swedish Democrat Party. The hope for me for Sweden in the party that will stand against immigration, the party that will give a voice to the voiceless, is the Swedish Democrat Party. And most of us in Europe, in all the countries in Europe who are involved in these politics, would look to the Swedish Democrat Party. So would Salwan's life be saved by the Swedish Democrat Party, or have they not stood up or been as vocal as what they should be on this issue?
No one has really been vocal. Maybe not on a party level. This is a decision from the authorities, and politicians in Sweden are very afraid of getting meddled in, the decisions of the different authorities. I don't think they're gonna extradite him in the fact because of he's gonna get killed. But they took away his refugee status and they said he's gonna be extradited as soon as possible. I don't think it's going to be executed.
I don't think it will happen.
Yeah. So, but we'll see. But I don't think so. Yeah.
That's crazy, no? For me,
it's a double standard. You apply the law differently, depending if it fits your narrative or whatever.
Do you think Sweden's afraid of? Do you think the Swedish government are afraid of terrorism levels, risk levels, threat levels from the reaction to what he's doing?
Yes, I do.
So do you think that may be the reason why they may think sacrifice him?
Yes.
Sacrifice him because we can't deal with them.
They said so openly. That's why they wanted to kick Paludan out, and they realized, oops, he's got a Swedish citizenship. And they said public unrest, you know what they do in England, public unrest, he's creating problems here. They denied him permits to hold these demonstrations. Then that was overturned because they cannot deny him referring to public safety, right?
Okay. They're not allowed to do that?
No.
Okay, so under Swedish laws, they're not allowed to do that. Okay.
So they said they had to retract it. But there's a difference. Like 10, 12 years ago, the police did these searches in the subways for illegal immigrants. So they stop people, okay, where's your ID, where's your passport, or whatever. Which is their job. That's their job. That's the police job. So the media didn't like it. They started writing about it. Oh, it's oppression and yada yada. And then, you know, the politicians got cold feet. They didn't support the police, and the police stopped. This just goes to show if there's not a political will to do it, the laws don't matter. So the police stopped, even though the law says they should do it, because there was no political will to uphold the law. And then they don't do it.
Okay. Will the political will be there? Do you think that, as say the Swedish Democrat Party come into power at the next election, they gain again? Do you think they'll go hard or soft? Do you think once they get into power, do you think they'll follow through with the commitments they've made to the public?
I think so. I'm still a member of the party.
Yep.
I know all of them.
Because I just really hope with every of these countries, we don't want to see an Italy situation come into power and not fulfil it.
Yep.
Come into power and fail. The people actually support, because the people, I'm guessing, in this country, the only hope for many Swedes is the Swedish Democrat Party.
No, I think they will. And yeah, there's been a lot of new people in the party, but the party is disciplined.
And there is a shift across the world. There's a shift going from left to right across the whole of Europe. They're not going to be on their own.
No, exactly.
You're not on your own anymore.
But the party is disciplined, and they're working also through the system. They're not, we're not sort of rebellious, just trying to make a fuss. We're playing by the rules, but we're changing the laws to better ones, and we're changing as much as we can, in a responsible way. And it's very deliberate and very planned. So I would be surprised if they didn't follow through. And we have been picking up speed now. We've been in power for 1.5 years, and we've been picking up speed now with all the proposals coming in. So it's going better and better and faster, and I hope that will continue.
What's the Swedish Democrat Party's view on the European Union? Do they want, like Gert Wilders come in saying we want a vote, a referendum?
Yeah, our previous position was to get out.
Okay.
Our position now is
change within.
But if there's any more powers getting transferred to the EU, we want to hold a referendum so the Swedish people can get out. So we're very EU critical.
Okay.
Not as much as we used to be, but it's also respecting. They said yes once. They should said no if we want to get out.
So. Mind if I just one more view?
Sure.
Just one more view on the farmer protests that are happening across Europe.
Yeah.
What's happening in Holland? Has that sparked in Sweden?
No, I just saw a news thing just the other day. There was some farmers protesting, but nothing.
Nothing to the quantity that's gone on in France and in Holland.
No, not at all.
Swedish
people are very bad at protesting and demonstrating, except for the left-wingers.
Okay, so left wing are very vocal, the rest are probably...
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think of the whole farming situation, of what's going on with the European Union and the farmers and the rebellion that's happening?
Well, I'm on the farmer side.
Okay.
I mean, the European Union are meddling in places that shouldn't be their business. And they're also making it harder for us to have our own food source, to grow our own stuff, not be dependent on other countries and shipping lines and
why do you think
value chains.
Why do you think they're doing that?
Well,
without going down the rabbit hole.
That question leads down the rabbit hole.
yeah, it does. It totally does. But in your opinion, why?
We could be here for that. The real reason, I don't know. I think it's some kind of control. I'm not sure. I haven't really dwelled into it.
You haven't gone down that. Yeah. So you don't want to pass comments too much.
But there's something fishy going on.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Okay, Ken. Well, I'm sure everyone watching this I've had eyes on Sweden for years. It's a beautiful country, beautiful people, and a beautiful culture. Is it disappearing? Is it in danger? Is it in more danger now than it's ever been?
It is, and it's all due to demographics. So I'll do my best, and we'll do our best to reverse it as much as we can.
I wish you luck.
Thank you.
I wish you luck, and thank you for your time.
Thanks.
If you're watching this, I hope you enjoyed that discussion. They're important discussions. It's important that all of you understand what's happening in every country in Europe. Hopefully people can gain inspiration in certain countries from the actions of other patriots and political parties in other countries. So thanks for joining, and subscribe to our content, and please share it everywhere. We face censorship. Where can people follow you quickly, Ken, just as well? If people want to follow your profiles, your party, where can they do that?
Well, my newspaper is samnit.se, kind of hard to...
We'll put a link on here as you say it.
Samnit.se. That's the best way, and I'm on Twitter, Kent Ekeroth on Twitter.
Do you write in English and in Swedish?
Actually, mostly in Swedish, but maybe I should switch to English. Maybe that's better.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Ken. I enjoyed it, man. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you. Carry on watching for more interesting guests. I'll talk to anyone. I'll debate anyone. I'll hear anyone's story. If you want to help me along that way, it's not free. I need your support. If you can support my family, that gives me my peace of mind. It means I can continue to do the work I do. You can do so at www.supporttommy.com. I appreciate every bit of support, as do my children. It gives me the ability to fly them out here to see me so I can stay in constant contact with them. I'm deplatformed and I'm censored, so I need you. I need you to share this content. Make sure you stay tuned for upcoming weekly guests, interesting guests, exciting guests. I'm Tom Robson, and this has been my podcast, Silence.